Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back. This is the Networking RX podcast. I am your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. We appreciate you tuning in today. Appreciate those who have subscribed. Today is another great guest day. We have a wonderful guest. To be perfectly honest, I have been trying to get Renee Vidor on this program for a long time. And it's been one thing after another, her schedule, my schedule, this, that, the other thing, but finally got her on the schedule and it all is working out. She is an author, speaker, community creator, and she helps individuals and organizations discover how they're created to be so they can do what they're designed to do. That's kind of her mantra. Anyhow, she has written a book, and the title of that book is Measuring Up: How to Win in a World of Comparisons. Or in a world of comparison. It's not an S on there. But you know, when she first told me she was coming out with this book, she hadn't finished it yet. I said, I need to get you on the program. And for those who have been a consistent listener, you know I talk about relationships in a very broad sense, and that our biggest relationship is with ourselves. And so this certainly has application. And so I wanted to get her on, talk about comparison, how she came into this topic. And anyhow, welcome, Renee.
Frank, thank you so much. That was such a great introduction. And I have to tell you, I've been looking forward to being on this. So I'm so glad that we finally connected. I appreciate it.
Now, what was the impetus for writing a book on comparison? Well, I guess let's talk about what you mean by comparison. I know because you and I have spoken, but the listener doesn't know all our back chit chat.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what is comparison? I will tell you real quick, I break comparison down into 3 different areas. There's assets, appearances, and achievements. So comparison can be something as small as I'm looking at you thinking, oh my goodness, you have the best sunglasses ever. I wish I had those sunglasses. It could be I'm looking at you and saying, if only I had hair like you, Frank. I could be looking at you. I could go to a networking group or a professional gathering and realize that, you know what? He has more franchises than I do. He has a title that is better than my title. You know, those are achievements. So comparison comes in a lot of different forms and tactics. Right. But typically it's going to be wanting something or wishing that you were somebody else or having what somebody else has.
Well, you did write a book that, hey, comparisons are great. The book is really kind of the opposite of that. Your mantra is kind of the opposite of that. What got you interested in this? You know, there's something out there. There's an impetus to, hey, I need to address this concern.
Absolutely. I do have 2 children. I have a daughter when I began writing who was in 5th grade, and she would come home from school and she would talk in these terms of, this person thinks that she's so cool. You know, do you remember saying that back in the day? And
yeah, nobody said it about me, but anyhow, yeah. Go ahead.
You didn't know because it was behind closed doors, and that's really what typically happens. Is that we don't realize that other people are thinking the same thing about us. So I would ask her, "What makes you think that she thinks she's so cool? Did she say it?" She's like, "No, she just acts like it." And you know, I had already battled a lot of comparison in my own life. I had already dealt with the appearances has been my largest roadblock. And after dealing with that, I wanted to be able to help others who were struggling with it. I saw it everywhere I went, every, like I said, networking group, every Bible study, just everywhere I went, I was noticing that people were comparing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not dealing with it the way I was anymore. So I want to help. That was where it came for me.
Yeah. You know, I think we all struggle with this. And going through your book, Carrie, who helped you publish this, he wrote a nice little review in there, and he just essentially said it's natural. Comparison is very human. and so is fear, and we need to fight through that as well. So, you know, I'd be a liar if I said I didn't compare myself. You know, early on in a professional career, you see people who have cars, and right away you assume they're making more money than you. And I've just, I try to rationalize and say, you know, no two of us are the same. So I don't know what their world is. They might be just swimming in debt. And that's why they have a great car, or may have come into money or whatever. So anyhow.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we look at comparison, to realize that it is something that is in our human nature. And what I found when I would research the topic was that every article, even like Psychology Today, which my background psychology, so I love that aspect of it, and social psych and whatnot.
Right.
But when I looked at it, everything said, this is how to stop comparing. This is how to beat comparison. And you know what? If that were possible, we would have already done it. All of those articles would have actually done something. But the truth is we can't. So instead of trying to stop comparing, we need to realize and cling to the fact that we're going to do it. So let's use it to our benefit instead of our detriment.
Okay. Well, tell us how, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look and I realize that comparison can be beneficial, I have to realize that about myself, I need to know who I am. First, I have to see, what does comparison do in my life? And I have a little acronym. It's called WIN, because you want to win in a world of comparison. That W stands for weigh your cost. Whether you're in business, whether it's in personal relationships, it doesn't matter if it's just looking in the mirror. You can compare yourself to your own expectations. You don't have to have another person there. Comparison comes that natural.
Right.
But if you weigh your cost and you recognize what it is costing you to let comparison have control, and that's going to be a key word there, is control. Who is in control of comparison? Is it you or is it comparison?
Right.
But when you weigh that cost and you see that it's not going in your benefit and it's expensive for you, then you're going to want to take control of it. So the next part of that acronym is I. That's innovate your identity. Now, we all have an identity. We all are us. However, many times we're putting on masks and we're performing. We're performing to scripts that other people have written for us. It can be a boss. It can be another competitor. And they actually didn't write the script, but we wrote the script and we think they're writing it for us and we have to follow it. But all these different masks that we put on are not allowing us to be who we're created to be. And that's where you mentioned at the beginning, my mantra is that until we be who we're created to be, we're not going to be able to do what we're designed to do. So we're going to do things in a faulty manner. We're going to try to be somebody else, and all those people are already taken. The world needs us. So we need to innovate our identity and get rid of all those masks, get rid of the things that don't belong there, and then put in what does belong there. And some of those things we've probably been ignoring. And I'll give you an example. This is something that I ignored for a long time. I knew that I was meant to speak on stage. I knew that I had that ability early on when I was younger. But after becoming a mom at a young age and getting married, I'm just saying, I kind of lost my identity of it. It was like, I lost it. I was mistaken. And I lost that ability. So I just dismissed it. I was like, yep, that's not me. Nope. I have stage fright. Who am I to speak on a stage?
Right.
But I came across an incident where I needed that. And I went out and I sought out how to be able to do that again. And I put it back in my identity better than ever. So that would be just a little example, especially if you're in the professional career where you need to speak on stage and you're scared to. It might actually be in your identity, and maybe you've thrown it away because you're too scared.
Right.
So after you innovate your identity, now all of those articles I was talking about, the Psychology Todays and all of that, that's navigating your journey. Those are the behavioral modifications that need to take place after you've done the hard work. Once you navigate your journey, that's going to be pieces, for instance, the Instagram. Maybe you need to unfollow some people. Are you reading business magazines that are causing you to think that you're not as good as you really are? You might need to set them aside for a little bit. Unsubscribe. It's okay. I gave you permission. Sometimes we just need some permission to do that.
Right.
But we can navigate our journey once we have the rest of, our weighing our costs, innovating our identity.
No, this is all interesting. I was certainly wrote notes, but I'm of the belief that there are people out there who they force comparisons on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll drive the car. They'll talk about the car. I had a boss like that, talked about his suits, their $1,000 suits. And, and you feel bad about it. Oh, my business is a 7-figure business. And I've come to the conclusion, and maybe it's for my own protection, but I've come to the conclusion that it's really more about them and their insecurities than them trying to push insecurities on me. They just need to do that to validate themselves. And they probably go home and lie in the corner and suck their thumb because there's something missing for them. So I just, I'm not perfect at it, but I try and put my blinders on and I just ignore the outside world to a certain extent. It's hard. It's, it's hard. You're on Facebook and, whatever, and you see those sorts of things out there. You talk to people.
I found myself there as well. I found myself seeing so many things and realizing that, they are either flaunting it, or if they're not, maybe they're a little narcissistic. I write about that as well in the book. But ultimately, it is something to where I've learned if I celebrate their wins, I no longer take it personal. I'm making it about them. Right. And no longer do I feel like it's about me. So I'm taking myself out of the picture, and either I ignore if that's a possibility, but sometimes I just need to press into it and just celebrate it.
No, I think that's a really good idea. And because that's what they need. I have found that through the years, the people who, especially when it comes to money, the people who really have money don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. They don't talk about it. Some people out there are very successful and never talk about it, drive a junky car. They don't talk about it. They don't need to talk about it, but the people who do, I don't know. Imposter syndrome, I know you addressed it in the book. How does that play into comparisons? How does this all hurt us? How can we, again, use it to our advantage?
That's a great question. Imposter syndrome, and for those who aren't necessarily familiar with it, is when we are attempting to tell ourselves that we're not good enough. We go out there and maybe we have a product, maybe we have a service, and we're offering it to the world, and all of a sudden it hits us, this imposter syndrome that, oh my goodness, who am I? Who am I to be offering this? Everyone else is better than I am. I don't know. I never stopped to think whether or not there's anything good about that, to be honest. I don't really think there is, except for the fact that allows us, if we're asking ourselves that question, it allows us to use our innovative identity to answer and say, well, this is who I am. I am this person that helps this person with this. And once we answer those questions in the confidence of already knowing who we are and having that laid out and designed, then we're going to be able to beat that imposter syndrome and have control over it.
Yeah, I've come to the conclusion that there's always going to be somebody who has more. There's always going to be somebody who's faster, better, stronger, better looking, whatever. And you just have to kind of put it away. I was talking to a friend years ago, and we kind of came to this conclusion together because, his first house was a nice starter house. And he bought the house, and as soon as he bought the house, then he realized he had friends who had nicer houses. And so he and his wife upgraded to another house, which was not tremendously better, but better than his friends had. And then he discovered that he had other friends that had even nicer houses. And at that point, he's just like, forget it. It doesn't matter. You're always going to have somebody, let's take Les Wexner. Yeah. Les Wexner has a palatial, it's acres and acres. I don't envy that, but he has an awesome house. There are people out there that have a better existence than he does,
right. And that's someone else's lane, right?
Right. Oh yeah. And he might, and those other people might say, oh geez, but I've got so much smog, and so it's all sort of the same sorts of things. Let's talk about your work and how you work with people on this. A book is nice, but you're starting to work with people, or you have been working with people, I should say, because there's lots in the book. What are some things you can do, types of people you're looking for, how you help, if you could share that. I mean, obviously I don't want to get into names, Bob
Right,
Smith's got this
absolutely.
problem,
Oh,
but,
no.
but yeah, if you want to share about that, the things that you help people with.
Absolutely. The people that I normally find that are open to being helped are those of a growth mindset. Someone who is not in a position of a victim. And that's where many of us find ourselves there. We find ourselves, everything's always wrong. I can never get it right. But I don't find myself working with those people very often, to be honest. It's
Mm-hmm.
someone who knows that they have value, but they need to figure out what that is. They need to figure out how can they apply this method to their lives so that they can go out and, do the best at what they know that they're good at. So the people I've been working with more recently have been entrepreneurs. I've been working with stay-at-home moms as well, as long
Right.
as they are willing to invest in themselves, because that's where I was. I'm able to work with
Right.
that as well.
That
And
must be that must be a difficult category, because I'm sure. Well, I know there's a lot of stay-at-home moms, and we do live in a somewhat sexist world,
Mhm.
who have made the decision to stay home, but they're very smart. They're very driven, but given that choice, they're like, for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years while my kids are young, I'm going to stay home.
And that can be
And
hard.
yeah.
Yeah. I found myself comparing myself constantly to the other women. And I write about that a little bit in the book, about how the women who are staying at home with their kids and they're in their yoga pants and whatnot, they're looking at the business women out there, and they have a degree in all this too. I was one of those people, and I'm looking and I'm saying, oh my gosh, I wish I had that title. I wish I was working like that, making that money. But then you have on the other side those business women who
Yeah.
have the title, looking and saying, I wish I could stay home and wear yoga pants all day.
And be with my kids.
Right?
And miss those things. Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
So
Yeah.
there's that
Absolutely.
comparison.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably underscores the point, to the extent that we're comparing ourselves to others. They're looking at us and probably saying the same thing. Oh, geez,
I
I wish
found
I
that.
were. I wish I were you. What do you mean? I wish I were you.
Yes.
And there's probably a lot of that going on. So anyhow, I interrupted you. Entrepreneurs, stay-at-home moms.
Other people.
Okay.
People who have an idea that they want to get out there, but you were talking about the imposter syndrome that
Yeah.
often stops us. That's something that I love. I love to work with people who just need that boost. They need to
Yeah.
know that they are worth it, and that they do have something of value and driven. There's something about someone who is driven, and they just need that extra help. So
I find that from time to time with people who are aspiring authors. They have they have this book, but it's already out there. I don't want to write it. It's like, no, it's not out there. It's you have a duty to share that with the world. You have a duty to write that. And it's not going to. You may not sell 1 million copies, but you may change somebody's life, and that's all that matters. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
And what I found, in addition to what you're saying that co-lines, is the fact that you will change other people's lives, but I guarantee in the process of writing that book, you will change your own life. You will learn so much. You will go deep into the topic that you are already interested in. And you'll also, if you're sharing from your own story and your pain points, then you're going to be able to work through a lot of that you thought maybe you had already worked through. And I found
Right.
that in my own topic as well.
Right. No, I just think that's it's a powerful thing. I remember when I came out with probably my first book, I was talking with somebody and they were saying, oh, it was the most insightful thing. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? Your book, that one line you used in your book. And I can't remember what it was, but it was like, are you serious? Oh yeah. Are you serious? Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, to me, it's just another line.
Exactly.
Oh, I know what the line is. My kids remind me all the time. I say, your greatest day is yet to come. Never stop believing your greatest day is yet to come. And, he just like totally internalized that. I'm like, oh,
That's a good one.
Yeah. I was just like, oh my gosh, really? I've impacted somebody. So those who you help with in the book, towards the end of the book, you talk about, you call them your next steps for measuring up. You want to talk about your assessment, your courses?
Absolutely. I like to call us compareaholics because, like you said at the beginning, we all compare.
Right.
So I have an assessment for your compareaholic score, and you can find out where you land on that in order to become less of a compareaholic, because we're always going to be, but we either are going to take control or we're going to hand control over. So that helps us to be able to assess how we're doing in that area, and we can improve. And there may be days of the month. I mean, all different areas that we could take that and kind of see where our mindset is. I also have a 6-week course, and that is where I go deep into what I just shared with you about the WIN method. And going deep into it, I have one-on-one options as well as group options.
Okay.
And at the end of that, you're going to be able to win in a world of comparison.
Okay. Good. And I will get something in the show notes to direct people to that. You and I can figure out where you want to send them. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that? What's the best way?
The best way, I have to tell you, Frank, I'm not that great at email, but
well, and that's okay. I have a lot of people in my life. There's this one woman I know, she's out in New Hampshire, and she was on the program. I want to say she's horrible to email. LinkedIn's her thing. I'll email her, and then she'll send me LinkedIn message back. And I've just, okay, I get it. That's and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's kind of got their preferred method.
But just to find me out there, I am on Facebook. You can go to my name, Renee Vidor, and you'll find my business page. You're welcome to contact me there. I am also on LinkedIn, and depending on where I'm at with projects, sometimes I'm on it daily and minute by minute, and other times I may not see it for a little bit, but I will respond. I love to have feedback. And then you're also welcome to email me if you'd like. But like I said, you may or may not hear right back from me, and that's Renee@simplyenrich.com.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you being on the program today.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being on the program. Just to wrap up, remember, being networked is vital to success. And if you are responsible for driving sales in your business or profession, receiving referrals is the most effective means of generating referrals, or generating revenue, I should say. And it's always been that way. If you're looking for easy ways to drive that, certainly join a chamber, or even better, a networking group like AmSpirit Business Connections. But having said that, think about this. If you had a choice, would you rather be a renter or the landlord? It's really a no-brainer, right? You're smart. You want to own the business. You want to collect the rent. So why do you just want to pay to be in a networking organization when you can make money from operating a networking organization? At AmSpirit Business Connections, we're looking for highly engaged entrepreneurs and professionals who want to operate a networking organization. In other words, they want to own the building. So if you're interested, why wouldn't you be? I invite you to reach out to me. I have an email in the show notes or one at the end of the podcast. We're in the process of our national expansion and looking for organizers and managers to help us. You'll make more money from professional connections and also make money building professional connections.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.